What is cracking, Jew banger?
Yeah.
Tell me something.
I don't know. What would you like to know?
What is your purpose?
Oh my goodness. That's such a big question. You sent me that at like 8:30 in the morning and I was like, and do you know what I did? And I'm just going to look it up on my phone because I actually looked up what that was, the meaning of it, because I thought it was quite useful. I actually looked up in the dictionary and there's a few different descriptions which I thought might be quite nice. So purpose, the reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. A person's sense of resolve or determination. So there was a new sense of purpose in her step. Or have as one's intention or objective, which I thought all three of them, it's kind of a nice description to riff off. So I guess
so
I guess my purpose, and it's changed over my lifetime, but at this moment in time where I am at my stage in life, I think my purpose is definitely to help people. And I was thinking about it today when you text me that, and I was like, yes, to help people move better and to feel better in their bodies, but also maybe to inspire people by my life story. And I don't mean even really collectively and masses of people. I just mean if I can inspire and help one person at a time through my journey and what I've been through, then I'm doing okay. But then also it was, I think I was always destined to be a mother. And this is kind of a mad thing. In my 20s, I didn't want to be a mother. I wasn't really interested. I didn't want to get pregnant. I couldn't really see that for myself. And then when I did get pregnant, right, and the moment that my son was born, everything changed and everything in my life switched and it all kind of made sense and fell into place. And it made me...
So life made sense.
Yeah, life suddenly makes sense. And I finally understood it was such a weird thing. Do you remember, I think it was in our podcast with Dr. Sarah Mackay, she was talking about how the neurochemicals, when you're pregnant and then as the baby is born, you get like a flood of, is it oxytocin or serotonin? I can't really remember what it was. But it was one of those.
Oxytocin.
Yeah, oxytocin. And it was like this immediate rush from me. As soon as my son was put on me, everything just fell into place. Everything clicked. It was like suddenly this rush of love. Everything just made sense. It's like I finally got what real love was. Do you know what I mean? It was, and then everything else fell in place from that. I just became better, more empathic, more understanding, more intuitive. And that's where I think everything stemmed from. That was my purpose. And from that purpose, everything else started to just sprout off from there. So that is really what it is. And we can maybe dissect that a bit more, but tell me what your purpose is.
Yeah, still working on it. I got an idea,
okay,
but I think I'm still working out really. It's definitely involves people because it's just what I do. You're right. At least I think it does. And I don't know, and like the biggest driving thing for me is learning. And so I almost feel like my purpose is just to learn, and then whatever I learn is put it out there so that, you know, there's value added to the community around me and to people around me. So that's kind of what it feels like, but I'm still in that kind of phase of discovery with it, like the more I've been thinking about it, because there's a great book called The Art of Impossible by Stephen Kotler. And it's just, he's done a lot of research on like flow states and what it takes to get there in the neurobiology of it.
Yeah.
And that book is essentially a how to get more flow. And it incorporates like, you know, the bigger things in life. Like it's all about how do you maximize your neurobiology to get you into the state of flow. And it's not just about, you know, flow for the sake of flow. It's and to be clear, that state of flow is what people would have experienced when you know, some of the markers of being in a state of flow is when you are so engrossed in an activity that you lose sense of time. It feels really purposeful. It can even feel like play. and you're at the edge of your kind of skills challenge capacity. So it's kind of pushing you, but not too much. And if it was within you, it wouldn't feel like you're in that flow state. It can feel like, creativity just sparking and flowing out of you. So that's what we mean by flow. But the thing is, to get there, it's there's a lot of prerequisites that need to be met, and curiosity, passion, purpose, autonomy, and mastery are those 5 things that you want to be aiming for. Okay. And so I've got like curiosity and passion in bags. It's like I just love learning about the stuff that I love learning about, right? Yeah. And the curiosity is always there. I'm always asking that question. And then when it came to the purpose part, I was like, yeah, there's something that I can figure out still, like really get to the heart of. I'm not entirely sure what the answer is. And purpose is essentially, in this regard, is you feel compelled to do something which is greater than yourself. It's not just about taking care of yourself. It's about doing something which is bigger than you. So in your case, it's like, oh, I've got my son. This is my purpose, and making a good life for him. And so for me, is like, what is the equivalent thing of that? Like, if I have kids, it'll probably be the same thing. Like purposes can change as well over time. Yes. But what is that thing that compels me to improve the state of the world, essentially, and one way or the other? And a lot of people think, it's like, it's going to be this grandiose thing, go change the world, like Elon Musk is, send everybody to Mars. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be that big, because you're very right down to earth, and right in your vicinity. Like, again, like raising a child, some people think that it's got to be bigger than that, but it's like, no, actually, there's nothing bigger than raising the next generation of people to have a better life than the one that you had. So there's an aspect of it that I'm still working out, like, what is that exactly for me in the grander scheme of things. So yeah, and that's why I was really thinking about it, and that's why I just messaged you at like 8:30 in the morning, like, Jude, what's your purpose? You're like, what the hell is that? Like, yeah, this is how we roll around here.
Yeah, I liked it. No, it's good. I love those questions.
But, and yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm still working it out entirely. But I know that when I delve into the things I'm curious about, and I feel like a passion rising, it's like, okay, passion is what I really want to do, and then that purpose is how is what I want to do marry up with solving problems in the world. So just putting everything that I know to good use to make outcomes better for humanity, I guess, in the grander scheme of things. But it starts with just, affecting change in the people around me. And then that extrapolates out further and further and further. So still getting a handle on it exactly, but we'll work it out.
That's really cool. And while I always say this, and while you were speaking, but it's like these thoughts came into my head, and I met you, 3-4 years ago? I can't really remember. It was 2017.
Yeah, I think it's 2017.
2017, wasn't it?
2017, 2018, maybe.
Yeah, whenever NKT level 2 was. And I feel like you have come a really long way. It's not just about NKT or personal training or coaching. It's so much more. Like, I saw today on Instagram, you've just qualified in something to do with Jordan Peterson, which is like amazing. You have to tell me about that in a minute. But it's like just seeing your development, your personal development, but also your business development just kind of go up and up and up. It's like, you've come a long way, don't you think, in the last 3-4 years? And I don't know why I've kind of thought of that, but it's just like, I wonder what you're going to be like in the next 3-4 years as well. Like, where is this going to take you, this purpose, this passion? And if you have kids along the way, that's going to change it again. It's like your purpose changes. It constantly ebbs and flows and morphs and develops into something else. And life and life experiences are going to change that again. And I think for for both of us, it's been quite a mad journey for the last few years, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go. But yeah, tell me about the Dr. Peterson qualification that you've just done, because I assume that's part of it, the 5 things that you were just talking about.
Yeah, so that is, he's got a course called Discovering Personality.
Wicked.
On a like Kajabi or something. Like basically, he's got 8 lectures, and it's all the introduction to the big 5 personality model, and then the 5 personality traits and the overarching traits, and then just a lecture on each one of those. And it's basically 5 hours worth of lectures. So it's not like a qualification. It's more like you watch the lectures, you remember some stuff. They give you a little test at the end of it, and then you pass the test, and they give you a certificate of achievement. So it's not like it's like it's fun. It's useful because it helps you obviously relate to people, figure out where somebody's at by kind of the behaviors they're displaying to you. And yeah, personality is like, a really nice way of looking at it is like personality is how we interface with the world so that we can make sense of the complexities of it all. And so because shit is complex, figuring people out is complex. Massive. The work we do ends up being complex as well. I thought it was just like no brainer for me. It's like, I love what he talks about, what he teaches, his philosophy, or the breakdown of philosophy of other philosophers. And so it was, for me, it was just, hey, okay, he's offering this thing, I'm going to just jump on it and watch the lectures. And yeah, it's really useful, really, really helpful.
Right.
And yeah, so that is me again exploring curiosity, and something that presents itself in front of me, and it's one of those things where the interest keeps coming back. So it's not just I see it once. It's like you can get shiny object syndrome. You can just like, oh, I want to do that.
Yes.
Ooh, I want to do that. Oh, I want to do that.
I
know. This one just kind of kept cropping back up, and I was like, yeah, okay. I'm just like, this is a really basic entry level, like a foundational analysis of these different personality traits and what they mean in combination with each other, the things we know about personality, what they help us predict, and the things we don't know. And so it was it was a good little education, and that's what it was. And so I made a little joke about it. It's like 5 hours of lectures, and my Instagram post was captioned with "Got my PhD."
I saw that. Funny. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I like what you said there about how you can get that shiny object syndrome, especially with courses like I Love Learning too. And you're like, I want to do that, I want to do that, I want to do that. But it's always those ones that pop out or that just keep coming back or that you keep thinking about. It's like anything. There's certain things that I keep thinking about, and mine's very much the neuroscience angle. And it's like I keep coming back to certain courses, and it's like at some point I will do that. It's like the DNS course that just keeps coming back. And I know that I probably know some of it, and everyone's like, oh, I don't really need to do that. But I'm like, yeah, but I really want to do it. It just feels so important to me. So I know what you mean about having things that you keep coming back to. And for me, it is the movement. It is assessing people and being able to get them to move better. And I've probably got too many courses to review and under my belt, and I should really just keep going back and going over the anatomy that I have. But yeah, I think, I don't know, sometimes I crave a bit more movement learning as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's like you kind of want to satisfy that craving as well.
Yeah.
Because, if you don't, you feel like you're becoming a little bit stagnant.
Yeah.
But what you said there is actually not something that should be overlooked, which is just review what you already know, because it's really easy to just jump into the next new thing. But reviewing what we already know is, it's consolidating it. It's making us better. Is actually probably going to provide more value than just jumping on the next course that we see that we think is going to be useful to go on. It's like that whole Bruce Lee line of like, never fear a man who practices 10,000 kicks one time. Fear the man who practices one kick 10,000 times.
Massive.
And it's the same. It's just basically, the path to mastery is just like kind of staying on things without getting too distracted, even though they fit in with what we need to know. there's always something else. And so the key there is just kind of sticking with things we already learned and consolidating that, and then moving, I think, and then adding to that very selectively, I think, is the key. If we don't, we just like blindly step into course after course after course, and as valuable as they will be, we'll take in like 2% of what actually we came there for, and then we kind of discard it as if it wasn't useful. But that's not the case. Everything's useful, but everything, like, methods, there are many. So sticking with the principles, making sure that, okay, principally, what do I need to know? What do I want to learn? And by doing the next course, is that going to give me exactly what I'm looking for? Exactly. And if there's a bit of doubt, it's like, okay, leave it out.
Exactly.
And so I'm doing the same as well. Like neuroscience wise, is okay, I want to know the neuroscience of everything, basically. With especially like neuroscience and movement too. So for me, neuroscience of essentially the mind. Like, I guess neuroscience can be looked at as the biology of psychology, and nice. That really helps to make me make sense of things, of how my mind might be working, and then how we can tap into, especially with the line of work that we do, primarily we need to help people make change. So how do we tap into making change better? And I think understanding the neurobiology of mindset is really helpful for that. And then neuroscience of movement is everything we're essentially doing is, for the largest part of it, is trying to influence the nervous system so that we move better, because it governs everything basically. So those will be like the things that I really want to explore, and make sure that I kind of just stay in that lane, because it'll be easy to drift, because I've wanted to explore a little bit more about strength training. I wanted to explore a little bit more about building muscle mass and going down that route, but it's like that doesn't speak to you as much as knowing this stuff. So I should really make sure I got the blinkers on for everything else and go down that track.
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's the things that speak to you. And at the moment, and when we were speaking to Kathy Dooley as well, it was so inspirational that I was like, I actually just need to go back and review my anatomy, and I need to know that really well. I need to keep knowing it and know it better and know it even better, because at the moment I know about that much and I need to know a lot more. And then I'm like, yes, and I want to incorporate the brain and everything that you just said. It's like, this is our control center, and it's good to know that stuff. But at the same time, I'm like, I need to know the anatomy. And so for me, I think I'm almost working from the ground up. I want to know more about the muscles. I want to just go back, relearn. I've had, we've had that like kind of interim like bit by learning neurokinetic therapy, and I absolutely want to know more. And I did a bit of neuroanatomy, and I really love that. And I actually think for me, like listening to you like the neuroscience and the kind of psychology of it all, whereas I'm like, I like the nuts and bolts. I like the anatomy of it. I could probably go and watch a cadaver dissection of a brain and be like, oh, yeah. And I think that for me is like, I like to understand the mechanics of it, and then maybe I'd head into neuroscience. So I think and this is me just kind of riffing off it now. It's like, I actually need to go back in and learn way more anatomy. I think maybe you probably feel like you're quite up on your anatomy, but I'm like, listening to Kathy, I'm like, I need to know more. And I want to know it really, really well, so that I can stand there with a client and go, okay, let's assess your shoulder. Let's see, and know immediately, and then test, and then think about the neuroscience. So I feel like I'm maybe lagging behind a little bit, but I'll get there.
Doesn't matter. It's like, anybody compared to Kathy's going to know nothing in anatomy.
Correct.
And it is overlooked. Like, anatomy is massively overlooked as well. It's like there's so many practitioners who just don't know enough about it. I remember working with a guy. He's like, I don't know, how many muscles is a hamstring? 4? Like he just made up a number. And if you include the short head bicep femoris, you got 4. But 4. It was he just made up a number. He had no idea what
and that's it.
How many there were. It was quite funny. He's like, okay, name them. And this is somebody who's like, all right, we're going to, even for hypertrophy, is like, okay, you got to know which one does which, so that you can bias the hamstrings in certain ways so that you're getting that stimulation for that muscle growth. This is hilarious, I remember. But yeah, no, I'm always going to need to know more of that as well. But I guess I do pretty well, like off principles as well. As like if I understand that, it gives me understanding that kind of overview gives me enough to go on, and then from there I'm like, okay, what are the details that I need to understand, so that you always got to go a layer or two deeper than what you think you need to know, because you'll get challenged on it, and also it'll make you a better practitioner, because then you can see solutions clearer than if you didn't do that. And that's massively important. That's why, like, essentially the neuroscience of the mind and neuroscience of movement is massively helpful for me, because then I realize when somebody, especially like when somebody's doing a movement, for example, and the need is to kind of stay in a position for a long time. So when it's rehab related, it's like, we need to get rid of some load, but we need you to execute this movement really, really well. And when you're executing that movement, and it can look like it's a really easy exercise. A lot of my clients will attest to the fact that I'm giving them exercises and they're like, oh, this looks like we're pretty easy. Why is he getting me to do this? And then 2 minutes later, they're like, please make it stop. Please make it stop. Please make it stop. Right. Yeah. And you would have experienced that as well, especially like clients like, I'm just lying on my back. How is that going to be difficult? And same thing. But when you build up that intensity, like, that's how the brain responds. So, and I know that is great. So instead of like saying to somebody, oh, like, especially if they've got a pain issue, it's like you start to feel that intensity, they can start to get a little bit worried about it. But it's like, no, you want to feel that level of intensity as long as you're maintaining good form, as long as there's no pain kicking in, you're gaining, by leaving that level of intensity in there and building until it basically becomes unbearable, and then you have to let it go. That's fine. That's good, because that's training the nervous system to tell you to make that change more permanent, so that you've got better quality movement. And if I don't know those things, then it's like, okay, I'm going to get somebody to do a movement, but I'm going to keep backing off the moment somebody thinks it's too hard. It's like, no, you actually got to stay with that a little bit longer. It's fine, as long as you're able to, hit the checkpoints, as long as you're able to do the movement well. It doesn't matter if it's hard. It doesn't matter if you're shaking doing it, as long as it's getting executed well. And so like kind of knowing that level is knowing it's at that level, you kind of have to, right? Yeah. And just gives you more to fall back on.
Absolutely. And I was having this discussion with one of my clients this week about teaching styles, and how she was saying she went to a Pilates teacher before me, and how that Pilates teacher was a real, she was like a taskmaster, and I'm not. And I think there's value in both. And then it started to make me think about, okay, well, that's because of my nature, and that's my personality, and I'm not a taskmaster. I'm not like, no, you stay in that position until you're done. It's like, but also I think it is that neurobiology of, and it's something that Kathy Dooley always taught us on the courses that I've been on in Immaculate Dissection, is that it takes 3 repetitions for the brain to either, in the nervous system, to either kick in or to fail. It's why we always kind of test 3 times, and we do things 3 times, or I'll get someone to fire something up 3 times, because by that point the brain, and I can't remember all the science behind it and the mechanics behind it, but the brain's either going to get it and it's going to lock in, or it's going to fail. So for me, it isn't about doing 20 repetitions and getting someone, because they're going to lose their form, they're going to lose everything. I want to see that they can perform an exercise, feel the benefit, move it within their range, and do it 3, maybe more times, but that's when the nervous system, their brain, everything's going to get it in. And it's like, no, I'm not a taskmaster, but I want you to move, and I want you to move well, and I want you to feel the benefit in different ways. It's not about feeling the burn the whole time. We've had this discussion before. It's not about feeling that burn for me. It's not about you shaking and sweating, and I understand it's like you're taking someone through it, and as long as they had good form, keep going. But I'm not going to get them to hold a plank for 5 minutes, because there's absolutely no benefit in that for me. I'm like, what the fuck
Exactly.
does that do? I mean, it's nothing. I want you to be able to move well. I want you to be able to walk without pain. I want you to be able to get up out of a chair or get up out of bed without feeling bad. So I don't see what a 5-minute plank is going to do, or task mastering you into doing, so many things on the reformer. I want you just to be able to perform stuff with that breath work, with that mobility, that stability, and then we move on. Different teaching styles, different people. But I think that's, again, we come back to the anatomy. If you know the anatomy, you know the range of movement, and you know what you're trying to do because of the anatomy, then you don't need to be a taskmaster. So that's where I'm like, okay, so you need to go away tomorrow and sit and watch some stuff because your anatomy needs some cleaning up. And that's going to make me a better teacher. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where the personality course comes in handy, right? It's like, why do people prefer a taskmaster over someone like you? So it's like, okay, cool. You're going to resonate with this. Okay. And with someone like Jude, it's like somebody who's a little bit more open and
curious.
That is, and that's going to suit you better. Whereas the other person is like, just give me stuff that I've seen on the internet and just make me work hard.
Yeah.
And and which is fine if you get some result that is that they're looking for.
Exactly.
But the biggest thing to getting results is actually having a good relationship with the coach that you're going to be working with. If you don't, because essentially if you don't trust them, then you're not going to do what they say.
Exactly.
And what they suggest is useful for you. So that's a huge one. Building that trust.
And I think also, like, it was we were talking about therapy last week and how it's the same kind of thing. You have to build trust with whoever it is that you have decided to commit your money to, but also you've decided to employ to basically help you. So it has to be that about that relationship and that rapport so that you can get on. And often it's not necessarily about results, although I am quite results driven, but it is about that connection with someone. And if you make someone feel comfortable and they feel like they can change and they can help their body, then that's cool. You're laughing.
Yeah. Well, you build that connection with the result as well, isn't it?
Yes.
You show them something, it's like, oh, right, okay, this person knows how to get me somewhere. And then that trust builds as well. Yeah. So, I mean, results are baked into the equation there. But the trust and showing them the way. I wanted to, because it was still something, it's like, you were saying dissect it a little bit further with the stuff about purpose, because I definitely want to ask you a bit more about that as well. Because it's amazing how it's like, the conversation just tracks, and it's like, this is actually quite naturally going wherever it's going. But it's also the stuff there that I really wanted to ask you about. And it was the idea that, your son comes along and everything kind of makes sense. And so is it like, was it for you, was it pretty much like a night and day kind of difference in life between living before he comes along and then afterwards you're like, okay, I have this meaning now. This all is that what happened? There was a sense of meaning, whereas before there wasn't any clear meaning.
Yeah. And maybe that sounds weird. I've been a lot of things in my life, and I've been a musician, and I think that gave me purpose at that time in my life. But then I think I got a little bit lost because it was such a big thing to decide not to become a full-time pro player and to move into the music industry. It was almost like, I think a lot of people found that to be a really dumb decision of mine. But I knew what I was doing. I knew that I didn't want that life, and I knew that I wanted more stability. But I did feel a bit directionless for a while when I went into the music industry, and then it didn't really work out. And so then I went into fitness. And although that gave me more purpose, I then got pregnant, probably in a fairly important moment where I'd just become a Pilates teacher. And so I was building up my business, and then I got pregnant. And I, the pregnancy wasn't easy. And although I wanted to be pregnant, it at the same time, it was quite nerve wracking. And I remember towards the end of my pregnancy, just walking around mother care with my mum and being like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know if I want this. It was just a really weird thing. It was like, I don't know. I don't even know what a muslin is. I don't know what a bottle is. What the fuck am I doing? And so there was this weird kind of disconnect with everything. It's like I wasn't a Pilates teacher anymore. I wasn't a mother yet. I just didn't know what was going on. And then it was so mad. So I went into labour and then I gave birth. And then they do this thing where they put the baby on you. And so Noah was put on me. And it was that moment. As soon as he was put on me, it was almost like my world went boo. And I was like, and that was it. And then I was like, where is he? Give him back to me. Why have you taken him away? Give me. And that was it. And then I was just like that. And it was awe inspiring. But at the same time, it was very, I was quite an anxious mother just because of the birth. It was quite traumatic, other things going on. And, but yeah, it just suddenly gave me this sense of, oh, I get it now. I understand. I understand what everyone's talking about because, everyone was talking about being a mother and I was like, whatever. And then I got it and everything else, just, you do everything. Then everything is then for for your baby, for your child. It's like you work because you need to make money, because you want to make sure that your child is okay, and you want to work around the child. So it gives you such a sense of purpose. But for me, also something that it did, I was very flighty, very like, I'm quite chaotic as a person. And what it did for me as well is it grounded me and brought me into almost like the present, but also just made me more, I wanted to be more grounded and more at home and more in the here and now rather than I was less flighty. And I think that gives you purpose as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think you touched on something which is one of the functions of purpose is that grounding. It anchors you to something which will keep you going and always orient back to, and so that you always know what you're doing, so that you're always making a better decision with your life rather than being unanchored and kind of drifting and feeling like everything's kind of like you're just flying by. You're just drifting. That's basically it. So that's really interesting, and because with that, I'm just trying to think of it as well, like from a neurobiological perspective, because this all helps me really understand like the level of importance that purpose has for our experience of life. Because, for example, when you have that purpose, your amygdala, which is involved, like this part of the brain which is involved in fear processing, emotion processing, stress, etc., it becomes less reactive. So when that happens, you're more resilient to stress, and so you don't feel as much stress. So objectively, your life could be just as hard as it was without having a purpose, but because you have a purpose, that stress barely registers as much as it would do if you didn't have that purpose. So that builds resilience, makes you automatically resilient, and you're able to endure a lot more. So that also makes me think of our conversation with Kathy in episode 58, where she's like, it feels like breathing. So she's in this purposeful state where she lives a pretty high stress life, but the perception has changed. It doesn't matter because she doesn't feel stress because of her purpose is sky high. But then also the areas of the brain which are involved in perception also change as well with purpose, because you start to essentially alter your life around this purpose. So the information that you're perceiving from the world around you is processed a bit differently. So you're focusing more on things that are related to your purpose. So your perception changes, and those areas in the brain which are involved with that become more streamlined. And then your areas of the brain which essentially the size of it is correlated. The bigger it is, the more correlation it has with being protective against depression, and also is correlated with better well-being markers across the board as well. So with higher purpose, you got this brain region which swells up a little bit more, and you're able to protect yourself against depression and improve other well-being markers. And then on top of that as well, with purpose, because like there's more of an external focus to your thinking about, you know, not just for yourself, but what you do and how it impacts the world around you. There's less rumination. You're not thinking about yourself so much, so it protects you against that, and rumination is, you know, a root cause of anxiety and depression. Yeah. So you're able to remove that, and by having that external focus, by having that purpose, you are really lowering your chances of experiencing anxiety and depression as well. So when you realize, like, you know, here's this thing, you know, this ephemeral purpose, you know, people are like, what the hell is it? Do I even have it? Could I even acquire it? What is mine? And how long will it take me to get there? Is like, you know, just by figuring that out, the cascade of positive effects that it has on your experience of life is, it cannot be understated. So it's really interesting that you experience that kind of thing going on as well.
I did. And it's funny. I listen to a lot of mums and they're like, well, I'm really worried about what happens when my kids grow up, and what do I do? And I think and it's true, as your children grow up and they need you less, and they go into school, they go into secondary, they become teenagers, they get more independent, suddenly that purpose can leave you. And so it's almost like everything you say, it's like, I feel like I've set myself up by having my own business, it's funny, Noah said to me the other day, it's like, Mummy, you have 3 jobs, don't you? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you have the podcast and you have your studio and you have Goldster. And I was like, yeah, I suppose I do. And he was like, that's really cool. And I was like, thanks, dude. And but it was cool because it was like, but then I said to him, it's like, yeah, but all those jobs come below the main job of being your mum. But as he needs me less, then I've got these things, these avenues that hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood, that will stay in, that I can explore and give a little bit more time to. So I feel really, really privileged that I have these avenues. Yes, I'm a mother and that's given me great purpose, but I feel like I've set myself up, and I'm super lucky with these things that will give me purpose as things, as levels start to change within my life. And they're starting to change already. And so I think that's important. It's maybe, you know, it's to have a purpose, but then to have splinters of that purpose as well, and have other things that give you that as well. That's really 100%. Important to me. Yeah,
exactly. It's nice that you kind of have that. Well, whether it was foresight, whether you actually meant to plan for it or not. Yeah, I didn't think you did, but the good thing is you actually have that in place, because you realize it's like, okay, there's other things I need to do. You know, there's other things I need to be involved in, because like you said, time comes when kids don't want you around as much, right? It'll just happen pretty soon as well. Like teenage years, especially, he'll go off bowling around on his own with his mates, and you'll be like, all right then. Yeah, now what? You do your thing, and then I guess I got to figure out my own thing. But literally, you've got a bunch of things. Yeah. You can go back to doing more grappling. You can, work on your business and all this kind of stuff, and stuff that brings you like intrinsic joy, which is key. You're not doing it because it's just about getting the bills paid. You're doing it because you actually want to do it, and there's a hell of a lot more to that than just thinking about the paycheck, rather than the process of getting a paycheck. Exactly,
And you know, you were like, right, you should come and assist NKT. And I was like, oh shit, I had a real like existential crisis, didn't I? And you had to like talk me down and like, no, just fucking do it. And that again is going to help me, because that's going to give me more confidence to then branch out within everything that I do, and it will give us ammunition to talk about. It will give me stuff in my work. It will give me stuff in my class teaching in a way as well. And it's little things like that. It's those little breadcrumbs where it's like when someone that gives you something, never say no. Do you know what I mean? It was like you were like basically giving me that and saying you should do this, and it's like, and I felt very like, yeah, it's sort of Alice in Wonderland. It's like, yeah, just do it because that you're going to benefit from that, even though you don't want to do this, you're going to benefit. And it's like, and it's something that you said earlier. It's like things jump out at you, just do them, and that's what I've been doing. I've sort of, if something jumps out at me, even if you feel like you're a fraud or whatever, just go and do it. And then that's going to take you somewhere else. And it's all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, I think you and I are both quite good at that. It's like, yeah, we're going to go and do that and that and that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well, the key thing is again, not getting caught up in shiny object syndrome and actually just doing the thing which is relevant to you. Right. And, and this is one of those instances. So it's not just like, just say yes to everything, because I know when that's happened, you know, shit. You get spread too thin, but it's the saying yes to the things that you're talking about is like, is it important to me? Yes. Does it scare me? Yes. Should I do this?
It does.
Yes.
You know it scares me.
Yeah, exactly. And and not just and it's not just like, yeah, okay, go on, then I'll do this, and there's no kind of like, you know, feeling attached to it. You just think, yeah, whatever, I'm just going to get a little bonus out of this. It's like, no, this is actually stuff I need to do, I want to do. And the opportunity has presented itself, and this is a good opportunity to take, because it'll be a weekend assisting a course and learning as well as applying and helping others get better. And there's no better way to learn than to teach, in my opinion.
I agree.
So, so it's one of those opopportunities where you definitely say yes to, right?
Yeah.
Even though you said no. I was like,
shitting myself, and I've put it off and put it off and put it off, and the fact that, and it's one of those things, it's one of those series of events that I always find really fascinating in life, that it's like, right, he hasn't got any other assistants, they need an assistant, and it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's my time, let's do it. And yeah,
it's my time.
Not like that, but not like this, but it's just
throwing a Matrix quote there.
Always.
For anybody who missed it.
Yes. I love that you know it. It's like,
not like this.
Not like this. Not like this.
And then just
and it was one of those things where it's like, they need an assistant, they've got no one else. And part of me's like, yeah, I'll do. But it's like, no, just step into it. You'll learn it and you'll be better for it. So just do it. And, you know, it does scare me, but that's okay. And I will be the assistant, like looking around at you going, I don't know. But I know that you're there and Sue's there and it'll be fine. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't give yourself enough credit for the things that you already know. So
I can't remember.
I think you need
I've done it for a year.
Need to work on
Do you
that.
know what I mean? So,
but that doesn't matter. It's like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You're going to get it. And at the end of the day, it's like you're getting a lecture before you have to help people out with it anyway. Yeah. So refresh your memory. But, oh, yeah, I know this. What am I worried about?
Yeah. Except I'm not there for the first hour. But, yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you'll be fine. And it's just an element of teaching it to other people, which you haven't done
I've not done before. So, it's like, you've done it, so you know what to expect. Whereas I'm like, I've not done this before. I've not been an assistant before. I've not done NKT level 1 since 2016. And it's like, just do it. It'll be fine. You know, just put yourself in it. It'll be fine. It's like the podcast.
Exactly.
It's like I hadn't done a podcast before. and then it was like, just do it. It'll be fine. And at first, it was always that thing of not feeling good enough and going, why would anyone want to listen to me? And do you remember when I first did your first podcast? It's like, why has G got me on his podcast? I don't know anything. Why am I interesting? And then as we were talking, it was like, oh no, maybe I have got something interesting to say. And look at us now. There you go.
Chatting shit and someone's still listening.
I know, people listen. Who knew?
We love you guys.
We love you. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was a very kooky way of saying that.
Fuck off. Go on, explain.
Yeah, that's
explain. You've got to explain now, G.
All right. I said right before we started the podcast, we were just talking nonsense, and I said to Jude, I can't even remember how it came up. I can't remember what I said, but I think it was like, if you were speed dating, how would you describe yourself? And the first word that you came up with was cookie. And I was like, fantastic.
Cookie.
Just eliminate a certain set of guys.
Not even butters.
That's a good,
just cookie.
Good stuff. Yeah. Yeah. It's a good, it's a good entry.
Cookie. And they'd be like, all right, jog on. We don't want kooky girls.
All right, show me. Yeah, great. Thumbs up. We're good.
I know. Then they start talking to me and be like, oh my God, she's fucking insane. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think you should open with, like we did with this podcast. So what's your purpose? You'll get some real shit straight away. Cut through the nonsense.
What? Like, tell me your purpose. Why are you here?
You got 13 seconds. Spill it.
Go. And they'll be like, and then it'll be something silly. I'm never going to go speed dating. Ugh.
He's sickened by the thought of it.
Yep. Oh no. That's ridiculous. Have you been speed dating?
No, I've never been speed dating, but I've seen it. I've been in venues where I've seen it being done. I think I'd have a lot of fun with it.
I think you'd be great. I'd just be like that. And that'd be it. Each table.
Just staring at him like a meerkat.
Or like that. I want to do this.
Yeah, you got a solid RBF going on.
Proper resting bitch face. No, I don't really have a resting bitch face.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed, but I can't do it.
Just too happy for that.
Yeah, I'm too meerkatty. And that's why people always approach me. It's like, I'll be in the supermarket, I'll be the one that the old ladies approach to get the milk from the top counter or whatever, because I've got that sort of face. Whereas a lot of my mates have got that proper RBF, and no one approaches them. But I'm like...
Right.
Which I think is great. I'd rather that, to be honest with you.
You're like, yeah. You're like, that's really sweet, but I can't reach it myself, honey.
No. It's true. Look, let's go find someone. Come with me. Let's find a man. Come on.
Oh, hilarious. Yeah. So you get that energy, right? It's like, oh, this person seems nice, I'll ask him.
Yeah.
Whereas one of my mates, he went through a phase where he, like, every crackhead in the neighborhood would just come up to him and ask him a stupid question, like just start talking to him. He's like, why do I keep attracting these people? It's like, hey man, like once it happens, like whatever, it's a fluke. Twice, it's a coincidence. 3 times, now it's time to be a trend. Like we gotta look at you.
Do you know what? That used to happen to me when I was in Manchester studying. I used to get on the bus. Someone used to sit next to me and be like, have you thought about joining a church? And I had that probably about 6 or 7 times. Have you thought about joining our religious circle? And I'd be like, what? Why? Every time I get on the bus, why? And they just approached me in the street. Have you thought about joining our religious circle? And I'm like, no.
She's like, I'm already a Satanist. Thank you very much for asking.
Thought about saying that, but I was never that quick. I was just like, why do I always get singled out? And I think it is because I've got that kind of meerkat kind of face, and I'm like, do.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Every time. It's always me.
Talk about. See, that's fantastic. That reminds me of a story again. Like another mate of mine. He's on the train. He's reading a Richard Dawkins book. He's reading The God Delusion, and he's next to this woman, and he goes, she's kind of perturbed. She's a little bit like shuffling around, and long story short, she basically, right before she's about to get off the train, she hands him a note, and he's like, okay, this is really strange. And she just kind of looks at him while she gets off the train, and then he opens up the note, and then she's basically saying, God is with you. You don't have to go down this path of believing somebody who's like a pure, like the blind watchmaker, there is no purpose in life and everything like that. It was hilarious. She just made this assumption about him and left him with a note rather than being curious. It's like, oh, tell me what you think of the book, because he's like, I don't buy into anything what he's talking about. I'm curious to know what his point of view is. So he's reading it out of curiosity. And then this person just makes a blind assumption and just thinks, oh, this guy's lost it. He's got no soul. He's dead inside and he needs God's help. And that's basically like what the note was saying. And it's hilarious, but it's just the level of presumption that is in that assumption and the judgment. And you just go, wow, that is wild. And there's it's a really short book. I actually recommend it to anyone. I heard Joe Rogan talking about it on his podcast, and it's by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's just called The Four Agreements. And I mean, it's like a 2-hour long audiobook, 2.5 hours or something like that.
Okay.
Really straightforward to get through, but very, very pertinent and quite profound. And the four agreements are essentially be impeccable with your word. Don't take things personally. Don't ever make any assumptions, and always do your best.
Nice.
And it's beautiful and really straightforward, but hits home. And that was a classic case of somebody making a ton of presumption, and
people do it all the time.
And that is, where does it get you? It doesn't. You just got the complete wrong end of the stick, and you made a judgment about the world that doesn't exist, and you're going to go away thinking that here's somebody who's a mess head, in your own worldview. But really, you haven't actually explored what's going on there, and you haven't expanded your worldview. You've just closed off another perspective and got a bit of cognitive confirmation bias for your own existence, and thinking you're right and the way and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't help you, because it's just a bit poisonous when you're shutting off your world like that.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about that little book, is it's just really like 4 tenets, 4 agreements. If you stick by them, you can have a pretty good life. You can have a life that you're pretty happy about. And so it just kind of reminds me of that as well. Yeah,
I like that. I think it's very easy to make assumptions about people. And in the past, I've done it all the time. Not all the time. That's not fair. But I think it's easy to judge. It's like a book by its cover, isn't it? And actually, it's a really unwise thing to do, because I think you look at someone, you look at their clothes and you make an assumption. You look at, I don't know, lots of different things, and it's easy to make an assumption. But actually, I've grown out of that habit now, and I just get curious, get to know someone, talk to them. Don't judge a book by its cover, because you don't know. It's like people probably look at me and go, oh, okay, activewear. She's there. She probably spends all her time in the gym, and it's that perception of someone. Yeah. And it's like, you've no idea. So I try not to judge anyone, because you don't know. And also, something that I've learned over the last couple of years is like, you just don't know what people are going through either. And you don't know what they're struggling with, and you don't know. Someone might walk into a shop and be in a really foul mood and brush you out the way, and that gets you all back up. But then if you step back a little bit and get curious, and rather than make an assumption that, oh, they're really rude, it's like, get curious as to why. Or you might see someone and they're hugely overweight, and people might make an assumption of, oh, it's this, but it's like, what's the psychology behind that? Why? And you get curious about it. So it's almost like, if you maybe delve into that story a little bit more, you can become a bit more empathic to people, and not make assumptions, and learn about human nature more as well. So I try really hard not to make assumptions about people, and I want to listen. I want to know. Yeah. I want to find out, why are you angry? Why do you feel the need to barge me out of the way? Why do you feel the need to beat your horn at me? Whatever it is, wherever I am, what's going on with you? Because often it's not about you, it's about them.
Imagine you chasing that person down and just like having a sit down with them. Like, hey, we're going to talk this one out.
Are you okay?
You're going to tell me why you did that.
Yeah,
no.
But it was like Cindy as well.
No, and that's also like it's like the second agreement as well, is I don't take things personally, because that's that person's perspective of the world and they project it onto you. So the anger is coming onto you, but you don't have to take any of that personally. No. And because it's just not, especially because that person knows nothing about you as well. So it's not like you having your responsibility there. You don't even have to worry about that. That's one thing. Like, I feel like personally, I've always been good at that. It's just if somebody just, is being Larry on the street, or, you've had it, somebody gets mouthy, it's just like, all right, you're saying shit. It doesn't bother me at all, because you're just saying shit. You don't know anything about me. That doesn't even matter. Even if you did know something about me, it's like, you've got a problem. And cool, I can help you take a look at it. But if I don't know you and it's just somebody down the street, it's like, all right, you just keep causing beef. I'm going to walk away from this, because I got nothing to prove. It doesn't matter to me, because it's just like somebody's just running their mouth or just doing something stupid. So yeah, it's a nice little agreement, that second one. It's like, don't take anything personally, because whatever's going on out there is never really a reflection. When it's coming at you like that, it's never really a reflection of what you are or who you are. It's more how that person is perceiving you. But that's where the investigation, getting curious about it, is okay, if you believe that to be the case, especially if, it doesn't matter if somebody doesn't know you, but if somebody does know you, it's like, what's going on here? Let's just clear this up. Let's have that open line of communication, because if we don't, then that's going to turn into bigger problems, and we're going to try it. We can't just try and brush it under the carpet. We got to look at this. So I'm not going to make any presumptions, and I'm not going to take it personally, but we're going to figure out why you might feel that way about me, and then unravel that and make sure that's just not a thing. That is not based in ungrounded reality.
Absolutely. I think meet them with kindness, meet them with curiosity. And it's something that we were talking about a few podcasts ago as well, wasn't it? It's like, why do you feel the need? Why don't you like me? I'd like to know. And even though it's quite difficult, if someone has beef with you and it's quite difficult to hear what they have to say about you, I'd always want to know if there was a problem or if someone wasn't happy with how I was doing or whatever. Just meet them with kindness. It's like something that Cindy was saying as well. It's like people get a bit gnarly with her online because she puts this stuff off, and she always meets them with kindness and humbleness, and even if something riles me, I think what I've learned through in recent months is to take a step back and just check in with myself as well. I know you were gonna start laughing. Take a big step back.
You knew exactly what I was thinking. I was like, I couldn't say it because I'm just gonna. It was because I was literally gonna literally fuck your own face from Tropic Thunder. God, because I was gonna do it, and I would have just swallowed the microphone. I would have just shouted so loud that it would have been unbearable for people listening. So I had to stop. I just started laughing instead.
Take a step back.
Yeah, it's like, what you said. It's like, take a big step back.
And check your own
Excellent.
face.
What a character.
Brilliant. But it's like, if something's riling you, if someone says something, and it riles you up, or it bristles you, I've learned, or like you get a text and it pisses you off and you want to reply straight away, and it's like, just don't do that. Take a big step back and check your own face. Let's say it like that. Because actually, when you step back and give yourself some time and some space, then you can meet that response, that whatever it is that you might, that was a difficult conversation or whatever, you can meet it in a calmer place. So I think that's what I'm learning as well. It's like, don't take everything too personally. Understand that everyone else has got their own stuff going on. A lot of the time, like anger and discomfort and all that, it comes from a place of fear. So get curious about what's going on, that person.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
about
exactly. It is. Yeah, it is create that space. It's like create that space between your reaction.
It's very easy to react.
Yeah, exactly. And what you think you're going to do next is like, no, wait a second.
Give it a
and
moment.
Just realize like, it ain't actually that big a deal. You know, just look into it a little bit. And that's proper sound. So yeah, that little book I'd recommend to anyone.
Yeah,
just
sounds great.
get it on audio book if you want, and just like, you know, while you're going for a walk, you could probably pop through it, and just gives you some really nice, simple, and eloquently put as well, is because it's just so well communicated in a simple way, and because it's so short as well, and it hits home. So it's quite so that's actually quite powerful, because a lot of books will spend, you know, pages and pages and pages going through this kind of stuff, and here's one that gets the point across pretty swiftly.
Great.
And it's a nice thing to, you know, you can just re-listen to it as well, just to remind yourself of a few of the things. So yeah, and that's a good one. And like the other ones as well, like, you know, be impeccable with your word it's just like, that's also like, it's really profound because it's so simple.
Yes.
And it's just the idea of essentially just kind of like being true to yourself and just more than anything, not just to, just not to anybody else, is just mostly to yourself. Yeah. Because if you know you're doing that, then, you know, I like this line is like, you know, always tell the truth, so that you never have to remember a thing.
I love that. Oh, it's so important. I'm not a good liar. I can't lie at all. I mean, I'm shit. So I kind of live that, and I can't do it. It's just not. I just haven't got the face for it. Did you
That's
do
the thing,
it?
You have got the face for it because.
Did you have the chocolate?
Yeah, just could never wipe that look off your face.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's great. And it's again so simple, because all it does is, like, you know, every time you tell that little lie to yourself, or the way that you speak to yourself, it's consolidating that pathway, right? It's consolidating that line of thinking. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, it makes a distinction between, like, you know, your word can be pure magic, or it can be black magic. You know, it can be pure magic, and that you say good stuff, and, you know, that puts good shit out there, and it makes you feel better. And then it can be black magic because you're saying negative stuff, and it's impacting your own soul. But also, if you say something negative to somebody else, or do something negative in that sense, you're just making the world worse around you. So it's there's a lot of power in that as well. And it's not just about what you've, like, literally put out there with that expression of language and saying things to people, but it's what you think of yourself and what you believe of yourself. So the impeccable, and like it also just explains the origins of the word impeccable as well, like from im meaning without, and I can't remember, like, but the Latin word for peccable was just basically sinful. So impeccable means without sin.
I like that. I really like that.
Yeah. So
I was going to say, it's like the more I investigate myself, the more I get curious, the more I learn about myself, the more I kind of delve into therapy and movement and neuroscience and everything, the more I want to stay away from gossip and bad conversations and that kind of thing. It's like, I genuinely, it does something to me when I hear people talk badly about other people, or they're constantly moaning.
That's exactly what he's talking about in the book as well. It's like gossip is poison. Literally spells it out as well. I think it's just that negative speak, even if it's, you know, and I know people can feel collectively like a community when everyone's gossiping about something, but it doesn't sit well with me anymore. Talking badly about people, anything like that, it feels dirty to me. It feels like, well, we shouldn't be doing this. It's not a good thing. It's not a good place to be in.
I like to keep my
It's like, what do you want to build a community around, right?
yeah. Oh, and he said this and that. It's just, I don't like it. Or just being negative about other people. It's like everyone's got their shit. Everyone has stuff going on. There's no need to be negative about them. I guess I'm just getting to the point where I just see beauty in everything. And I don't know if that sounds weird, but it's just, I want to see the good in everything. Yeah, that's all I've got.
Mm. Yeah, well, that's not weird, because it's kind of touched on what we talked about previous podcasts as well, is the idea of nihilism and hopelessness. And if that's the way you see the world, then there is no beauty in the world. And if you're going to approach it that way, then the logical conclusion is just to end it for yourself, Whereas if you look at it with beauty, there's optimism baked into that world view there. And if you're more optimistic, it makes you more resilient because you believe in a better future. If you didn't believe in a better future, you'd want to give up. It's I think there's a lot for it in terms of how you're viewing the world is going to shape how, obviously, I mean, as clear as day, is going to shape how you're experiencing the world, but it does more than we ever give it credit for, because it always feels like it's like a woo-woo thing. But we're starting the show with like modern neuroscience and exploration into neurobiology of stuff, just how we can influence our state of emotions, our physical abilities, with the way that we think about something, and essentially whether we believe what we think or not. And we're so we've got to be impeccable with our word. And on top of that, it's creating community, not around that kind of negativity, but around the things that you want to see persist and propel you forward. So fuck all that noise.
Surround yourself with good people, and I think surround yourself with people that inspire you as well, and inspire you to be better, do better, and want to propel yourself forward. That was always my thing. It's like, I want people around me. I want people in my inner circle that inspire me to be better. And I have that now. So that's really important. Because then you make a difference in their world as well. And then you make a difference in other people's world. And you get that has a ricochet effect everywhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's something else that made me think of as well, which was, just the idea of doing nothing, It's because a lot of time it feels like the obvious thing is you just don't want to do anything, or let me put that better.
Okay.
You don't want to have any worries. And by extension, you're like, you don't want to have to do things. You don't want to. Yeah, it's basically, okay. It's because I'm exploring something here. I'm trying to say something which I haven't fully articulated, but we're going to try. But it's the overvaluation of doing nothing over doing something. So what I mean by that is doing something requires effort, right? So whatever it's going to be is always just the mere fact of me opening my mouth requires effort. So whenever there's effort involved, we're making a cost-benefit analysis of the cost of putting the effort versus the benefit that the effort will provide you. And so in a lot of cases, it feels like nothing is going to be more beneficial than doing something. Because you don't have to put any effort in, right? But there's a misunderstanding there of basic human, like even biology, let alone our psychology. Because if we're not doing something where we're moving forward and pursuing something and doing something meaningful to us, then it literally affects our longevity as well. So we literally shave years off our own life. It affects our state of health. It affects the state of mind, because of going back to what we were talking about with having a purpose and how that blunts your self-rumination. it's the same here. If you're doing nothing, you've got more time to ruminate, and you're inviting anxiety and depression onto yourself.
Correct.
And yeah, and I find that happening as well because with me personally, because I'm a person of momentum. It's like starting on a day-to-day basis is like the hardest thing for me. It's just getting started.
Okay.
But once I start, literally 10 seconds later, I'm just in.
Yeah.
I'm in. But starting is always the hardest part. And the days where I let that win out are the days where I've wasted a lot of time. And so I've done nothing. And on the surface, it feels like that's great. I didn't have to do anything. You know, I've been relaxing, doing nothing. But actually, my mind is not at ease. It's not at ease with that, because it wasn't doing nothing because it was baked into the equation. It was reward for having done something, for example. It was doing nothing because it felt easier to do that than to do something, even though that something is important to me.
Yeah.
And it's those days where you kind of lose that connection with that importance, right?
Yep.
And the more I do that, the more I ruminate, the more irritated I am with myself, the more irritated I am with things that are going on around me. And when I've become more attuned to that as well. So, it could be little things like, dishes are left out in the kitchen, and then it never does that bother me, because, I know I live with clean housemates. It'll get put away. It's not a big deal. But then, some days it would just look at it and be like, why the fuck is this out here? And I realize I'm like, oh, I'm not doing the things I should be doing. So
okay, that's cool.
this goes back to also, so this also goes back to things about, don't make any assumptions to me as well, because I could make the assumption that, my flatmate's being a dick by leaving the dishes out. Actually, it's not. It's all to do with me. It's all to do with my perception of the world right now, because I chose to do nothing over doing something. I chose to not exert myself over exerting myself, and that never felt, and that doesn't feel good to my soul, because the act of doing something, when I get into it, I'm using my time to do the things that I like to do. I'm researching, I'm reading, I'm working on my programs for my clients, I'm working on my online program, all this stuff which I find meaning in. And but it's hard work, but the thing is, I love it as well. So when I have the momentum for it, it's easy. I'll just keep doing it. And I'm very good at, once I get started, it'll be 4 hours later, I'll still be doing the same thing if it hasn't been done. If it's a big project, then it needs to get done, right? So, but it's that starting part. So on the days where I feel a little bit more resistance to it, and if I let that resistance win out, then it feels, you might think it's liberating to do nothing, but it really isn't. It's actually more liberating to have done the thing that you need to do. Yeah. And that is feeding your soul. So yeah, for whatever reason, it just got me thinking about that as well. And I think it's all about misconceptions. I think a lot of what we've talked about is misconception as well, because, somebody bumping into you in the street, you're talking about it's their problem, it's not me. So it's misconceptions if we're making presumptions. It's a misconception if we take things personally, because it's not to do with us. It's a misconception to feel like doing nothing is better for us than doing something. And yeah, it's a misconception to kind of live a life where you don't at least try and explore what your purpose might be, whatever that is, whether that's raising a kid, whether that's working with people to make their lives better, whether that's just being creative and artsy, whether that's being an accountant. Somebody might find real purpose in that. It doesn't matter what it is. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of misconceptions that need to get addressed. I think when we look into it a little bit further, if you're ever stuck thinking or doing nothing, don't think that's better for you. Go and figure out something to do which is worthwhile, something useful, even if it's just a small thing, even if it's like whatever. I gave the example of dishes. Yeah. It's like, even if it's putting away some dishes so it looks like your eating environment is better for you, freaking do that, because just every little thing makes a difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's way more productive.
Same with impeccability of your word. It's say, if there's negative thoughts, just flip it. It's give yourself something positive to believe in, And then you realize that actually that line of thinking that I had, it wasn't impeccable. It wasn't doing me any good. Now I'm flipping that, but it's like one little thing at a time.
I think also when you have that purpose as well, you know, we were talking with Kathy about the work-life balance and how it's almost a bit of a toxic term these days. Work-life balance, work-life balance. Like, what does that mean? Because if you've got your purpose, there is no work-life balance. Like, work is balance, and that's okay. And it doesn't feel like work.
It's not even work.
No, it doesn't feel like work. It's like breathing, which is what she said. And don't get me wrong, there's times in my work when I really don't want to do it. I really don't want to study. I really do it. But actually, as you said, it's like once you get into it and you get into that flow, time has no concept, really. Because if it's something that you love, and really it is, it's like inner space for me with anatomy. And once I get into it, it's like, and time just goes. And so as you were talking, it was just getting me thinking about this work-life balance and how people talk about it. And for me, sometimes it's okay to sit and do nothing because I'm that tired and I've done a lot. But at the same time, it's like if I do too much of that sitting around doing nothing, scrolling, thinking, ruminating, that's when the thoughts come in and it all just gets a little bit negative. And I think that's where it's really good to have that purpose. And you and I were really lucky in that we have that, because it is just a case of I could switch something on, I could text you, ask you something, I could go and watch something, or I could go and journal or do gratitude or get myself out of that rumination as well. So work-life balance, there is no work-life balance when you have that purpose. And I think that's something to strive for.
It's called living life.
Hell yeah.
Nice. That's it. Go live life, people. Leave the conversation there today.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Tell us what resonated with you. What did you like about the conversation? Give us your thoughts at Evolve, Achieve, Thrive on Instagram. Just drop us a DM there. We'll be happy to interact with you. We always are. We'd love to know what people are thinking and giving their perspective. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on your favorite podcast player, on YouTube as well. So, and if you're enjoying the conversation, please leave us a rating and a review. It really helps us get the show out there. And we want to build that audience up and get the conversation out there, because if you're finding value in it, then I'm sure there's other people who are going to find value in what we're talking about too. So please spread the word. And until next time, live life with purpose.
Bye.